Welcome to the Economy of Well-Being podcast, where we explore subjects ranging from happiness to well-being in the workplace and nations. I'm your host, Mark Anielski, economist and author of the best-selling book, The Economics of Happiness, and my second book, published in 2018, An Economy of Well-Being. In The Economics of Happiness, I present some new paradigm shifts in the way we think of accounting and well-being. I hope you enjoy the show.
Well, it's such a pleasure for you to have me on your podcast, Mark.
It's
I
a great
am
pleasure.
normally, yeah, I normally say no to these types of things, but over the last however long the pandemic has been, it's been such a blessing to get to know you and to learn from and with you. And so I'm honored to have a conversation that might inspire others to step into their own space of wholeness and well-being.
Fantastic. So I'm very blessed and honored to have you too. And I think you're now my 58th guest. I interviewed an 80-year-old guy, my friend from Portugal, who I also met during COVID. So we talked about his incredible journey through meeting all these high priests of economics in his life, and now seeing the result of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and people that were leaders well before your time. But so it's nice to talk to different generations of. So tell Brianna Greenspan, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing, what you're passionate about, and we'll just get into a very comfortable conversation about why well-being might matter at all in the big scheme of things, given the state of the world today.
What I'm doing, what I'm up
What
to,
are you up to?
what
Who
am I
are you?
interested in? Who am
Where
I?
are you? You're in Houston, Texas.
I,
Yeah.
I am actually in Austin, Texas
You're in
at the
Austin
moment.
now. Yeah.
And my name is Brianna Greenspan. And I'm curious, what could you possibly want to know? I I am in a global task force with you. That's how we met. And
That's
I basically spend all my time doing all the good I can in all the ways I can at all the times I can for all the beings I can as often as I can. And I have like a professional resume and all kinds of other things that I could bore people with, but that's really the gist of it. I'm spending my time doing what I can to be of service for those that show up on my path and I'm called to support.
wow. So how old are you now? Are you 18? No, just kidding.
I am 33, although I get that one a lot because I actually was born with a genetic condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so I was kind of born feeling like I was old, but looking very young. And so it's like a interesting paradox where, I feel like I'm 80, but I look like I'm
You
18.
look like you're 18. I have to say, like you do not look 33. Um,
Yes.
well,
So I
that's
am 33 years young today.
so I can't bug you about how is it possible that you all you do is think about service to others, and does that mean you're independently wealthy, or have you chosen this path? And I know a little bit about your own health past and crisis, and how crisis shaped your miracle mornings. So maybe we're going to talk a little bit about that past, and which brings us
Yeah.
now.
I'd love to, but what I will say on the finance conversation is that I learned at an early age because of the excessive amount of suffering that I experience every day that there's no amount of money that I could earn to buy my way out of the experience that I'm having. And
Wow.
so I just started focusing on what are the things that I can do to best serve myself? What are the things that I can best do to best serve those that have similar or the same situation that I'm in? And what can I do to best serve others that come along on my path? And so, no, I'm not independently wealthy, but I also, um, I'm not spending money in the ways that I think I would be if I didn't have this challenge. And
Mm.
so I'm focusing on the resources that I have and how I can make them go further, whether I'm playing I kind of like play a different game I play the game of life differently than others, and that's something that you and I have riffed on a lot of times.
Yeah.
And it's all about resource sharing, and there's this weird concept that I have to make all the money in the world and you have to make all the money in the world and everyone else has to make all their own money and they should just keep it for themselves. But the truth is, there's no amount of money that can get somebody out of the dark place that they're in. It's about community and collaboration. And so, yes, I work. I actually work for a genetic testing company. I manage a medical contract with the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious
What?
Disease. It's kind of a nerdy conversation. I'm actually in the process of co-creating a new disease with the NIH. It's called hereditary alpha tryptosemia. We've been publishing research for the last 5 years to kind of validate the research that the NIH discovered in 2015. And now we're in the process of the final step of getting an ICD-10 code, which is basically um, that's the gold standard of a condition. A condition doesn't really exist unless you can bill insurance for it. And
Wow.
so
Wow.
I'm kind of championing this condition for patients with this issue. And since it affects 5% of Caucasian people, I know that there's a large swath of people who are suffering, that are going into anaphylaxis, that have widespread chronic pain and allergies and stomach challenges and autonomic challenges that nobody's really advocating for them. And because of my own health issues, I've just kind of felt drawn to best support those that feel similarly, and support those that don't have someone to help them. And so, yes, I have a job, but I also am the author of the Miracle Morning Art of Affirmations, which is a
Wow.
positive affirmations coloring book for adults and kids. And we teach families how to create structured morning routines.
I
Um,
I don't have guests who just talk about coloring books on the show, but we have a miracle guest who just showed up. Ron Lynch is going to join us. Are you okay if Ron joins us and we have a three riffer conversation, which would be the first time ever?
we can, sure.
Do you
Ron
want
Lynch
to?
is such a wonderful
And
character.
of course, we can add your voice later because editing is a beautiful thing. So, are you okay with that? I,
Sounds great.
but I want to talk about Miracle Morning. I want to get Ron to like not get, too deflected on. I don't
And
even
we
know
can.
Ron. I don't even know Ron. So,
Oh, and I will say that it's great for us to have a group conversation, but if you want to have a podcast interview with him, I'm happy for us to do it at another time or
well,
us.
let's, me, I just go where spirit takes us, and
Sounds beautiful.
there's no agenda. It's just all about being in the zone. Here we go. One moment, please. The famous Ron Lynch joins Brianna Greenspan on The
There's
Price
a
is
caller
Right.
there. Hi, welcome to KTLA, Los Angeles. Good morning, everybody.
We have Houston. I mean, we have Austin, and oh, you're both in Austin, aren't you?
And we just saw each other. Yes, and yes.
What is going
But
on?
actually, I don't think he's in Austin. He's a traveler.
I'm in Austin right now.
Oh.
I'm going to be in Vegas tomorrow.
Wow. So Ron, I know I bumped Brianna was waiting in the she was actually, I was double booked. You were both double booked. And so
Well,
what
you
I
can
thought
reschedule with me. It's no problem.
what I
I said
thought
the same. He said we should do it.
I said, this is this is my 58th podcast show, and I've never had two guests on at once. So I thought, given that we're all on task force, we might just have a fun conversation about what we're up to. And I wanted Brianna to talk about Miracle Morning. So she's just done a quick introduction. And so this show has got about a listening audience, about 50 internationally. So I'm not that famous, but the cool thing is, guess who's my most important visitor on the podcast from California?
I don't know what important means. I
Well,
hope
not important.
it's somebody in your family.
No, Mountain View. Why is Mountain View listening to my podcast?
Who do we have there?
Isn't that where Google is and Apple?
Do I have Tristan there?
Tristan maybe, but this is I've been running this for 2 years now, this podcast. So I'm was curious why Mountain View is the largest listening audience.
Maybe they're just recording it for the NSA. Who knows?
That's what I say. Like, we love you, NSA. Give me your
Thank you for funding this program and all of Google.
thank you. So Ron, just quick intro, and I thought we would just have a very lively. Usually my podcasts are only like 40-45 minutes. So
I have to leave in half an hour. I thought we were just on a phone call. I'm happy to be on a podcast, but
if you want to drop out,
no, I'm happy to.
I just thought we'd talk about like the state of the. I mean, this podcast is about the well-being economy, which is selfishly my platform. But I'm always bringing on some cool guests who just talk about a diversity of things. I just had an 80-year-old, one of the top guys and probably the biggest bank sting in the world, BCCI, if you remember that name from way long ago. 80-year-old John Freeman, or anyways, he was my guest this morning. So talking about the state of the world and where we've come from Reaganism to today. And anyway, Ron, quick introduction.
Who am I? I'm a creative. I'm a marketer. I'm a strategist. I work in the areas of sales and marketing, kind of reverse engineering from individual consumers back to companies. I'm probably known most for helping GoPro launch with Nick Woodman, and prior to that, going all the way back to the traditional infomercial of world of lots of gadgets and cooking gadgets on TV, and working with people like Billy Mays with OxyClean and Sonicare toothbrushes and all of that stuff. So when I say, but wait, there's more, I mean it.
So you're a master convincing us what to consume.
Well, hopefully I'm a master at helping you find what your actual problems are and matching them up to actual solutions credibly and ethically.
Wow. Were you involved in the Social Dilemma film?
Just in the help launch of that, just the dialogue of getting people interested in seeing it. Because I think in a form of marketing, everything that we do online as consumers is marketing to ourselves. We buy ourselves and sell ourselves by looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really a poignant part of that film, was explaining to the consumer how much their cognitive bias plays into what the results are they get in life.
Right. So this is actually a great, because I'm very fluid and agile here, a great theme to riff on is this, are we predispositioned for materialism and greed, or are we hardwired for compassion, love, and well-being? We've been convinced, certainly in the economic field, I know, which is more like theology than it is science. We've been convinced of material maximization and words like utility, but I'm not convinced we're hardwired for greed and consumption as the basis of happiness. I believe more like Brianna that we're hardwired for compassion and relationships, and giving and sharing, and not accumulation of material things, because that brings fleeting value. Thoughts on that, both of you?
Want me to talk about that for a second?
Sure.
I'm happy to. I think we come hardwired for love, affection, and the desire to give it and be seen for giving it. And just think about how you came out as a kid. You didn't want your parents' stuff. You didn't want your siblings' stuff. You wanted their love and attention. And you actually, one of the craziest things is physical affection. Is we want to be held. We want to be known that we're loved. We want to be seen. Now, that starts to break down, and we sociologically force it to break down. And that's part of the socialization process of shoving us into a society, even as kids. Stop touching, stop hugging, stop talking about love. Let's talk about building and making things, where we build and make now. And there's this transference to, hey, you're hunting and gathering. And we shove this tribalism and the benefits of tribalism. And we grow up to seek the things. If I have the things, then they'll love me. If I have the things, then respect me, or if I give the things. There's a huge problem with men is men go out into the world and they destroy their personal real estate relationships in the pursuit of acquiring things to give to other people. We're not just acquiring for ourselves, we're acquiring to give them to the other people so that they love us. Go, hold on a second.
Wait, yeah.
Let's go back to having the conversation about the love, because they actually love you. And the less you're pursuing, like, it's got to be a balance. Yeah, you got to survive. You got to have a teepee over the head, and you got to have a fire at night. But we don't have to trade all of one for all of the other.
So
And
that's fantastic. What a great reflection, especially from a male. So from a female perspective, Brianna, miracle morning woman.
I agree that we are definitely hardwired for love and compassion and affection. And exactly what Ron said, we naturally come out of the womb craving connection, human connection. But as we socialize and as we grow up, we've been conditioned to think that those aren't the ways that we should be showing up in the world. And so we've kind of shoved down this outward desire for connection and affection in the pursuit of materialism. And I'm constantly surprised when I see people say, I was striving so hard to buy this Mercedes, to acquire this thing, and it didn't bring me happiness. And I'm shocked that they're shocked. And it just reminds me that the things that bring us the most fulfillment are often free. The things that actually bring us wholeness and well-being, we don't need to strive so hard to achieve those things. We can have balance in our body just by breathing, which everybody in the world, everybody is afforded the opportunity to breathe. Do we breathe deeply on our own? Often not, but that's also some conditioning. So I agree with you that I think we are hardwired for love, and we need to reshift the way that we are conditioning generations so that we can show up not idolizing materialism.
think about the word celebrity. Celebrity.
T.
Celebrating an individual. And we built this culture around celebrity and celebrating these individuals. And we say, I love Marilyn Monroe, and I love James Dean, and then I love John Lennon, and then I love Michael Jackson, and they all perished. They all died. Did you love them? Marilyn Monroe has no idea you loved her. Michael Jackson has no idea you loved him. He didn't feel any of that love. And when one of those people passes away, we go, oh, it was so sad. We miss them. They're not missing you because they never actually had a relationship with you. And that's part of the celebrity lie is if I can, and I think that we all kind of push ourselves to, hey, we need more fame and more money. I need more attention and more money. And as you get farther along that road, you realize that's vapid. None of that is real.
None of that's real. And I think there's a poverty actually being a celebrity. I think there's a sadness because you think about how many friends I've just made during task force, and I can't possibly maintain all those relationships as much as I'd like. So I have to choose. I'm going to choose to talk to you and Brianna. But if I have 1 million people following me on Twitter, there's no way I can possibly have the energy to maintain a relationship. And so ironically, I think you end up going more into isolation and being lonely in spite of having so many followers. And so relationships, actually, in the science of happiness, relationship is the key variable that you can affect. You can't affect who you're born into, your upbringing, that's already set, but the relationships you can affect, and you can choose who you want to befriend. So that's the good news.
So there's, whether it's chasing fame or money or anything, River Phoenix was a good friend of mine. I was in a movie with him 30 years ago, and watching him perish was really critical in my psychological development about how I dealt with fame as a young person. I
Mm.
thought about it. And fame it has no top, but it has a huge downside. You just don't know when the downside's coming. And once it happens to you, like there's only a few John Travoltas in the world that have been able to reinvent themselves a couple of times and really reinvent themselves. That's one in literally 8 billion people on the planet. That just doesn't happen.
Mm.
So that crash comes, and then it's who am I after that? And I have literally had a lunch or dinner with a celebrity and had someone from the public come up and interrupt and say, "Didn't you used to be?" Can you imagine what that feels like to hear about yourself? Didn't you used to be blank? No, I'm still that person.
Right, right. Wow. Wow. So Brianna, I mean, you have an incredible story of health and overcoming, and your Miracle Morning protocol and book have inspired a lot of people. I feel I haven't read it yet.
I will just say a caveat. I am not the creator of the Miracle Morning. Hal Elrod is the creator and author of the Miracle Morning, and I just have one tiny little book in his series. But I am a very big fan of what he's created, and a practitioner and a teacher of this methodology, because I really believe that pouring into ourselves, giving ourselves the time we need to actually sit with ourselves, hear our own thoughts, be able to ground ourselves for the beginning of each chaotic day. It's it's the magic that we really need. And we're so busy and we're so conditioned to think that we need to be on to the next thing, and we're so behind at all times that we actually don't even give ourselves a moment to breathe. And so when he created this concept, which is not new news, there have been many successful people throughout history who attribute their success to a morning routine. So this is
Mm.
like what he created is really nothing but culminating what lots of other successful people attribute their success to. And that's uh, giving yourself the time to experience silence or meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling. And I fundamentally believe that every day when I give myself the opportunity to learn, I actually prime myself to grow. And I'm able to sit in uncomfortable spaces with equanimity in a way that if I had just woken up and turned on CNN, I probably wouldn't have um, that same foundation that I need to show up each day. So I am a big fan of Hal's and the Miracle Morning and the Savers, um, because of that.
Wonderful. So Ron, what Brianna just shared, I mean, in a way, marketing. I was reflect on how it is that news, right, so-called news, affects my emotion, captures my emotion. I get angry. I see what's going on. I mean, I'm a Canadian, so we're just kind of observing what's going on across the 49th and going, wow, there's a lot of emotion.
Why did we rent this apartment upstairs?
Like this is just bad theater, I think, but I can't discern who's telling the truth or who, and so you get caught in the spin cycle of emotion. And boy, are they good at feeding. And if you had it all turned off, you would never know that SARS, I mean, COVID was happening, except for people walking around with mask. Like the point is, if you were just present to the beauty out there, um,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be caught in the emotion. And one of my questions practically is, do you actually believe that we could create a marketing platform for happiness and well-being? I mean, I often reflect on the American Declaration and say it was the pursuit of happiness, Jefferson said, um, as the ultimate clarion cry of, right, of your Constitution. And How is it that we cannot seem to be able to secure that platform and maintain it?
So there's a couple of things I have to say about that. One is the promise was the pursuit of happiness, not happiness.
Exactly. Thank you. Pursuit.
The pursuit of happiness. I think there's something simpler in the context of reframing that way, and that is, how do you do things? Do you do them with a outlook of misery or a outlook of joy? Happiness is kind of like that peak, like celebrity, and it drops off. You can't. Happiness is not actually sustainable. It's a moment in your life because it's done in comparison to the rest of your life. It's a
Yeah.
moment of happiness, but you can be joyful all the time.
Thank you.
That's what you bring to the game. So, do I think it can be marketed? I don't know if marketed would be that the word I'd use, but self-selected. And I think that there's a platform for it. I think as you talk about the news, one of the things I'm highly cognizant of based on my career is utilizing the brain as a computer. Language is a code, and we tend to forget that. It's a click, click, knock, knock. That's where we started.
Yeah. Click,
And
click.
animals having opposable thumbs. Well, yeah, I mean, us having opposable thumbs and them not. But language is actually a more powerful tool and has been than the thumb, because language allows us to shift ideas from one to another. But we have control because of the way we're programmed with the basic language. So how words come out, even the tonality of the words, changes the meaning of the sentence. So I can say a sentence, the same sentence, 5 different ways and give it 5 different meanings in the English language. Now, when you're seeing the news, you have to be aware that they selected those words in that order and said it that way in order to make you feel that emotion. It is intentional manipulation from all sides. I don't even want to say both sides, because there's four or
All
five
sides.
parties.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's 4 or 5 platforms at work. And when I look for the news, my first reach is actually, I honestly open my phone and I scroll the headlines of CNN and the headlines of Fox on my phone. But I do it with that purpose to say, what opinion, what emotion are they trying to sell me just in the headlines? How should I feel about what I'm about to read? They tell you in the headline, this is how you're going to feel about this. Then I go and I watch BBC, or I watch Sky News. I get Al Jazeera. I'll actually get stuff from outside the US, because what's happened in our lifetime, Mark, we're about the same age, is we've seen a shift from the news to opinion news.
That's right. That's right.
Walter Cronkite never told me how to feel about it.
Yeah.
But Anderson Cooper and Sean Hannity can't help but tell me how to think about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I was thinking about how when you read a headline, I immediately focus on the adjective they used or the pejorative adverb. If you say, I've been described as a rogue economist, I have to look it up. What does rogue mean? Out of bounds, like out of my temple, out of my theology?
Out of theirs.
But they dissed me, right? I got dissed
You're
right
out of
away
theirs.
by political strategists who used the word rogue. And I'm glad you point out the power of words. I know, Brianna, you're reading my first book, The Economics of Happiness, which was about rediscovering the original meaning and vibration of the words: economy, mortgage, competition, education. They all have like old Latin or Greek roots. So we've lost their meaning, but the vibration of their intent is not lost, but our minds hear something or read something, and so we immediately go into an emotional response. And so the inability to discern, I think, is one of the greatest handicaps we have today. And I know I get caught in it, and certainly all my friends get caught in, like, what are we seeing on the news? Like, what's actually going on? And there's no way of, as you said, Walter Cronkite would just report on what was known as what was going on in Mogadishu or something from an eyewitness account. And even that was filtered, but still, you believed the account.
Well, remember too, when you and I were kids, the news was 30 minutes to an hour long, depending upon what news broadcast it was. It wasn't a 24-hour
That's
cycle.
right.
They
Cycle.
all occurred on the same, your choices were ABC, CBS, and NBC. They all occurred at exactly the same time. So you chose your brand, and they maybe sold you a Corvair and some Pepsi and JC Penney during the break. What's happening now is they're 24-hour cycles, and they're competing with 400 TV stations to get you to watch them. So not only are the words incendiary, but the images are fake. Because if there's a event downtown, what angle is the cameraman instructed? What is he going to get? He's going to get the most interesting thing. And the great thing about the human mind is it fills in the blank. Janet Leigh did not get killed in Psycho. There was
Right.
a dark figure, there was a knife, there was a shower curtain, and then there was chocolate syrup going down the
Yeah.
drain. But
Hitchcock
our
was
mind
brilliant.
all filled in the most horrifying murder, and the movie was sensational and almost got an X rating because of the murder of Janet Leigh in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hitchcock did not kill Janet Leigh, right?
That game is being played with us constantly.
Yeah.
And what is being shown to us is very specific with the intent of keeping us watching.
So here's a big question, because both of you know that I've just penned during COVID the great Declaration of Love, which took the Declaration of Independence, just played with the word love in it, and see how it rings. And it actually looks pretty decent. You know, the only question then is, why can't we test this in our companies, in our lives, right? What is it stopping us from affirming that actually love is who we are? Everything else is a distraction in my mind. And this truth is, we know it's resonant in our hearts, and yet we still get distracted. We still get confused. We still get caught in the hyper normalization of that brilliant film by Adam Curtis, which I think explains that we are on a theatrical stage here. But how do we reaffirm, against apparently all odds, this truth?
Well, how do you get your health? How do you get your wealth? How do you get anything else in life? Through this unfortunate thing called self-discipline.
Yeah.
We have to decide. We have to opt in and opt out of those things in life. I mean, if we went back to the model, what if we all agreed to say, you know what, we're all going to watch just 30 minutes of the news once a day based on our schedules, but we're not going to get consumed by anything. And to start to lower our consumption of all things in life. You don't get healthier by eating more. You get healthier. We've proven, science says, eat 5 tiny meals a day. Move more. We are created to create production of things instead of consumption. I think that's the first clue.
That is the first clue. Brianna, comments?
I actually want Ron to continue.
Okay,
He's
please.
got many clues.
We're just the old guys in the room. Like we know, we've been there. We've been part of the architecture of, and we're, you know, it's interesting when we're talking to our age cohort, you know, our 80-year-old parents, I don't know if your parents are still alive, but my dad's looking, he'll be 85 this week. And he grew up in war-torn Germany, right? And lived during that fascist regime. And he's looking back going, I can't believe I never thought I'd live long enough to see it again. And you know, here we are, born in the 60s. I was born in 1960. It's hard to believe. And I grew up there were good times. I had a loving family, but to see this kind of slow dissolution, by design, I'm convinced by design, or by our ignorance and complicity of ignorance and naivety, and sometimes just the belief that we believe someone's taking care of us, that other people have our best interests at heart. And we see that that's not necessarily true, or at least there's a few that don't behave that way.
What do you see as, because we've lived through the same era. So think back to the 60s I'll say to 1980, before we had the explosion of the PC, the cellular phone, and all of
Yeah,
that.
I had a handheld you know, calculator that was $900, Texas Instrument.
I remember those.
Texas Instrument, right? It's like I remember in 1980, we basically got our first handheld calculators.
Yeah, I think that a television probably cost the same in 1970 as it does now. I think they were about $300,
That's right.
400.
Yeah.
So looking in that time frame, what do you think is the major difference in the experience of humanity, like as individuals, between there and now, plus all this technology, 40 years of technology on top of that? I think there's a huge shift in what the expectation or what the actual true experience of people are due to this connectivity.
I think the biggest change, Marshall McLuhan, the great, Marshall McLuhan, Canadian, brilliant man, the medium of his message. He also wrote his blue book, which I have. It's called The Medium and the Light. This is his story of his own spiritual journey. And at the end, we were going to get, that's funny because I don't have a paid Zoom account. So we might
That's
get
okay.
cut off in 5 minutes, but that'll be good. That's okay. So he said at the end of his book, which is a brilliant book of his own spiritual journey. This was 1973. He wrote this. Make no mistake, Lucifer is a great electrical engineer. Now, his mother was a brilliant orator, and she would refuse to use a microphone in the church because she said it make Latin sound shrill. So we literally have a scenario where I think McLuhan was right. The great dissonance is the electrical, EMF technology that's distracted us from our true human nature. And when we pray, when we meditate, when we do miracle morning, we know that when we remove ourselves from that field, we see things differently. We experience joy. But as long as we're swimming in this field, is pollution. And we ourselves, of course, dosing. I do it all the time. I'm driven by push notices too. So it is a very, very slippery slope. And I think we've lost a lot from the days in the 60s when we went out to play. We went out till the lights went out in the street and we weren't afraid of things. We just played as kids. And I remember the first color television my dad bought, and it's like, wow. And look how far we have come and look how distracted we are.
Yeah, I think when I look back to our grandparents' generation, they truly were a we. They had to survive from the depression. They had to survive through the war. There was a we nature to their culture. And in the 50s, after a lot of them were decimated by World War II and then Korea. And then our parents came along and they became the me generation. And there was this spoilage of now we could start to mass produce food and things and create, and then we came along around the same time Disneyland did, and that it started to narrow up to really, and now we've gotten to generations, and this is not to throw any shade on any particular generation, just humans to there's nobody but me, that we've gotten to. I gotta be important. I gotta be seen to the world, and you have these tools of connectivity that allow a Justin Bieber to go
Right.
on YouTube and be found, be discovered, and suddenly become an international superstar, which is probably our version of the Mouseketeers, right? But
it is the Musketeers, yeah.
yeah, but we've got this dynamic of everybody needs to be seen and get validated by so many multiple people that they don't even know. And I think the recoil to this eventually is we're going to come back to the we's of our great grandparents and our grandparents, going, we need to be in it for us and quit being distracted by this desire for lavishness in our lives. That's not really great.
Yeah. And I mean, that's
really great.
I know, Brianna, I want to have you talk because
I really want to say something about this we concept, because what I love so much about Ron and what was so intriguing and inspiring the first time I met him was learning about how on his own is re-inspiring this we culture. And he in the pandemic, I'd love for you to share what you started with
Oh,
IntelliHelp.
you
And
share it.
I,
You're a part of it.
yeah, I mean, I'm just the same way that I love the Miracle Morning. I love IntelliHelp because it's a vehicle for me to care about someone who needs me right now. And
Mm,
there are so many people who are in dire need. They're figuring out, are they going to pay rent or are they going to put food on their table? And if there's a possibility where someone can pay rent and we can put food on their table, that's a beautiful representation of the word we. And Ron decided to use technology and all of his genius marketing and all the magical growth hacking things that he does to connect givers with askers on the most basic fundamental thing, and that's feeding your family. And so I'm a super fan of what you've created, and really just blown away by how you internalize where the world needs to go and you create the solutions and allow everybody to be a part of it. This isn't Ron's thing. You know, and in his intro, he didn't even mention that he's fed millions of people during COVID, specifically just by saying, hey, do you have more than you need right now? Maybe you could find it in your heart to Instacart over to someone who doesn't have as much. And these
wow.
people are able to just ask for a few things, 10 items, a couple times a quarter. So it's not like people are taking advantage of the situation. It's just when someone needs a leg up to get to where they need to go, how can we inspire the we culture? And so, you know, it's such a, it's, it's something that all of the tech people that really claim to be futurists, claim to be visionaries, claim to care about the world should take note of, because there's a lot of technologies out there that can beautifully connect us to this we culture that we need to be going towards anyway. And so my highest hope is to see more IntelliHelps popping up and to see, big business supporting IntelliHelp and actually saying, oh, we see there's a lot of challenges out there. How might we support those things, whether it's a Walmart or an Adidas or a whoever they are who have the cash? Because in COVID, someone succeeded, and we already know how many people are struggling. So what does it look like for us to create that beautiful marriage of the people who are looking to support on a corporate level and the people who are looking to support with just the few, dollars that they have to connect with those people who really need it?
That's beautiful. I know we have like 3 minutes left on my free Zoom account. So thank you, Zoom, for the shared asset. But this is a beautiful conversation. I know we could go on for longer, but I'd like to just reflect maybe another time, Ron, on what you've done. And I know Brianna and I have talked about creating maybe a different platform. I've been working on this thing called Soul Print, where we can, what is life but exchange of time, right? That's all we have. That's what we have in common. We have an hourglass that's drawing down the moment we're born. Call it 700,000 hours. So on a platform like you're talking about, now there's a mutuality of exchange, right? My hour for your hour, or maybe my hour is equivalent to 10 cans of refried beans in the cupboard. But I
Here's the thing, and I think that you'll find this in what you're doing, is we're actually connecting those people. So it's
right.
not going into a void. It's the giver meets the asker, and the person knows that they've been seen and they've been helped. And as a giver, it's a tremendous gift to know that you have really affected somebody's life, which makes them come back and give more. It's the personal connectivity of rewiring the world. They
Yes.
end racism, feed somebody's family.
Yes. So we're going to get cut off, but I just wanted to thank you both thank you so much. I will talk to you again, for sure. And IntelliHealth or
IntelliHelp. IntelliHelp.
IntelliHelp. Okay, so I'll make a big plug for IntelliHelp
.org.
for my 50 member listening audience. Just kidding. It's bigger than that, I think. Thank you to both of you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
I hope you enjoyed the show with my special guests. I'm your host, Mark Anielski, on the Economy of Wellbeing podcast. I hope to see you next time. Have a blessed and beautiful week.